And we're back for episode 3. 5 knots that actually matter. You know, one of my biggest things on YouTube, I see these videos where people tie knots and they get 1 billion views. I'm like, well, hell, I know knots. And then I get like 10 views. So this one probably won't be any different. However, 5 knots that actually matter. You don't need to know 100 different knots. In fact, when I was going through the Special Forces qualification course, I had an instructor that said, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. A booger knot is better than no knot. So these knots that I'm going to share with you today are proven and used almost daily by me. They are yet to let me down. So stick with me until the end. I'll take you places and show you things, and I'll show you a little something so that you can put it in your back pocket for later. Stay tuned. So the first knot that I'm going to go over is an end-of-line bowline. This knot is my go-to for any time I need a secure loop at the end of a rope. I first learned this knot when I was going through the Special Operations prep course 100,000 years ago. As a paratrooper, we needed to be able to tie down our equipment. And so what we would do is we would tie these end-of-line bowlines and use them essentially as a loop to create a slip knot. And so there's several different ways to tie it. One such way to tie it is to go ahead and create an overhand loop where my working end, okay, is opposing my standing end. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my working end and I'm going to come through the bottom of my overhand loop. And then I'm going to route it behind the standing end and then back through my loop and pull it tight. And you should see this sort of knot. To me, I always call it the Arby's hat. I don't know why. But anytime I need a fixed loop on anything, that's the knot that I go to. And then from here, like I said, when we would tie down our gear to our rucksacks, where we're being a paratrooper, and then we would tie, this was using paracord, of course, we would tie the end-of-line bowline, and then we would just route some cordage through, put whatever in there, and then it would serve as a kind of slip knot, okay? So that was one thing that we did as a paratrooper. Another thing that you can do to make this even better, once you're done tying it, is create a safety knot, which is just an overhand knot against the knot itself, ensuring that the knot won't come undone. The next knot to show, I'm going to use different colored paracord so that you can see what is going on, but it's the square knot. This one is probably the most common knot that I use religiously all the time, either to tie down to myself or connecting 2 ropes together. Okay, it's kind of like a bend, but it's not. It's a knot. Okay, I know before we talked about bends where you're connecting 2 ropes together, and you can do that via a bend and create a square knot, similar to how you tie a sheet bend, like so, and get your square knot. And the way we do that is I have my right hand and I have my left hand. I'm going to go right over left, okay, tie it down, and then I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to go left over right. and tie it down. And I know I tied it correctly because now I have 2 connecting loops. What's good about this is a tension knot. So as tension is applied, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Okay? But here's where people go wrong. Rather than going right over left and left over right, or vice versa, they'll go right over left, and they'll create a granny knot. Notice how my strands are perpendicular. This is a knot, but this is a granny knot. And what happens with a granny knot is this is not a tension knot. So if tension is applied to this, it comes undone. So to do that square knot with a bite that I did before, it starts with creating a bite. Now, for example, this might be trying to attach a rope to an anchor point. Okay, I take my rope, and whether I come in the top or the bottom, it doesn't really matter. But I route through that loop, and then I go all the way around it. Okay, and then I just go back through the loop, retracing before, and now I have my connected loops. From here, how do we make this safer? Okay, again, under tension, this is going to continue to tighten. However, not all knots work 100% of the time, as I've come to realize. So we always want to have a safety knot. So again, we make sure that we have enough material, and then we just do overhand knots on opposing sides of that knot. Damn bugs. Eating me alive. Okay, and I'm going to dress it and get as close to that knot as I can to keep it in place. Now, if it starts to slip, those knots will catch it and keep the knot's integrity. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned is that when we're tying knots, discipline is important. That rope discipline. I want to make sure I don't have any twists. I don't have any overlaps. My knots are nice and clean. And in the following knots, we'll see that better when we start talking about a Prusik knot. All right, so the next knot that we'll talk about is a friction hitch, and it's a Prusik knot. Prusik knots is a climbing friction hitch that is used to secure gear and to move gear. Okay, and what I mean by that is that the way a Prusik works is that when tension is applied to it. Here, let me pull out my ridge line here. When tension's applied to the Prusik, okay, it's not going to move. Okay, so under load, if I needed to haul something, I simply secure it to the Prusik, and it's not going to move. And then when I need to move it, I simply loosen up the knot a little bit, and then I can slide it, okay, to where I need it. Now, in order for a Prusik to work, the Prusik rope or cordage needs to be a smaller diameter than the cordage or rope that you are affixing to. It cannot be the same diameter, or else it's not going to bind onto the cordage. Also, if you're using paracord, the strands, I caution you, these nylon strands are very, very slippery. It will work, I've done it, but they're very, very slippery, so you just need to take caution on that, which is why bank line is always the preferred choice for me, because I don't have to worry about any of that. So what I do with my bank line is I get, a pretty decent amount, probably, a foot or so, foot or less, 10 to 12 inches. And then I go ahead and tie a square knot to secure it. Okay. Make sure that's good and tight. And then from here, I put it on the side. Okay. I wrap around my material however I'm going to. Now, I can either go this way or this way. It doesn't really matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed my material through once, a minimum of 2 times. I always do 3. Okay, so I have 3 wraps through one of the pieces, and now this becomes my locking bar, and I go ahead and just pull all of this through. Now again, we talked about rope discipline, making sure that we don't have any twists or turns or binds, right? So I got to dress this up or else the knot's not going to work. So now I don't have any twists or bends. I have a nice clean knot. Okay, here's my locking bar. Again, under pressure, it's not going anywhere. But then when I loosen it up, I can slide it wherever I need it. Let's take another look at this Prusik knot. So remember, I just have a length of rope here. It's not closed. I find the center point, or I grab a bite. Over or under, it doesn't matter. I go over it. I can reach through this bite and start pulling material through. So essentially, I'll do it the opposite way. So it girth hitches it, okay? This is your tension bar. For a Prusik, I'm just gonna go again, I'm just gonna wrap it around again, do another round turn. Make sure everything's dressed and there's no twists. And that's really the minimum that you need. I like to do it one more time. Do another round turn. So essentially I have 3 wraps around whatever it is I'm working on, and it's nice and clean, okay? And so again, it's a friction knot, so when it's under tension, it's not gonna move. But when I release that tension with this tension bar, okay, then it's gonna slide where I need it. And I'll show you how you can use this in an outdoor capacity. Okay, so there's several different variations of Prusik knots that we can use. Again, a Prusik is a friction knot used to ascend or descend, or, it's modular. So if I wanted to ascend or descend a climbing rope, for example, this 11 millimeter Cormantle rope, I have some Prusik rope right here. I can tie different Prusik knots called a Klemmheist or a French Prusik or auto block. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do the Klemmheist. If I'm not saying that wrong, I apologize. But first I'm going to get that knot bit offset. And then I'm going to wrap it 4 times. Four round turns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I just feed it through my bite right here. Okay. And then what I've created here is a type of Prusik knot that tensions on itself, but then when it's loosened up, it'll ascend or descend, and then when it's under tension, it won't move. Okay. The next one I'm going to tie is the French Prusik or auto block. So to tie that, again, I get my connected ends offset, and then I'm wrapped down 4 or 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, making sure that there's no twists or bends. And then all I'm going to do with this, with these 2 loops, I'm not going to feed it through each other, but I'm going to take a carabiner and connect it. Okay. Now when it's under tension, okay, it'll hold, and then when it's loosened up, it'll pull and maneuver. Okay. So technique is definitely not what it used to be, but Prusiks can definitely help you get your fat bodies up and down a rope. Now, with respect to getting your gear off the ground, or food for that matter, at a much smaller scale for simulation, I throw my rope into a tree, for example, and I'm trying to hoist it, right? Now, I can do this by myself, and this is actually not even that heavy, and it is considerable effort, not considerable effort, but it's a little bit of effort. Imagine this thing weighing 50 plus pounds. This thing, it's going to be tough trying to just hoist it up. But with Prusiks, with Prusiks, again, it can help you with that. Similar if you're familiar with 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 mechanisms, but we're not building those because I'm not climbing up here to put in any anchor points or anything like that. But simply, I just tie a Prusik around where my my bowline knot is right here, and just route that through. Grab my rope here. So just imagine you're at a big tree, you're trying to get this off the ground because you're in bear country or whatever. Now, this Prusik is going to take a significant amount of weight off of there, and I can lift this with ease now. Okay? So just think about this at scale, much, much higher. And then from there, I can go ahead and secure my equipment. Okay, so the next knot that we're going to talk about is a trucker's hitch. So, used to tighten up guy lines or your ridge lines, one rope bridges, whatever, okay? It's just a way that you can connect a rope from point A to point B and make it good and tight, or connecting your rope to something. But the point is to make sure that you get it good and tight, okay? So it starts with using a guy line system. Remember, I'm going to undo this knot, this first knot right here, to loosen up my, or to unsecure my ridge line here. And I'm just going to, and for just this demonstration, I'm just going to hook to this nail. Okay, and pull this through, yada, yada, yada. And then what I'm going to do, so y'all are going to get a bonus knot with this one. So I get to my tie down post, my other tree, whatever. Okay. And I mean, we can yank on this to get this as tight as we can, but we're only going to get it so tight. Okay. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come about maybe a foot or so off of our object right here. Now, people tie an overhand loop, whatever. I prefer to do a figure eight on a slip figure eight on a bite, because it's easy to take out. So all I'm going to do with that is I create a bite. I'm going to go once, and I'm going to go twice. And now when I go through that loop, I'm going to grab in the direction that I'm traveling. And you see how it creates an 8 there. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to create another bite, or a loop, excuse me. And I'm going to feed my loop through there. So now, as I feed the remainder of my cordage through there, I can now use the mechanical leverage of this knot to pull super tight. Now let me show you a quick trick. Okay, because what happens when you let go? Oh, I just let slack into here. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to wrap this twice through the loop. So I got once. Now I have twice. Now what happens is as I pull this is going to bind on itself and hold it in place. So I pull tight, and now I can let go completely, and I didn't lose any of that tension. And now I can go ahead and tie down my hitches to secure this trucker's hitch. Okay, and then when I'm done, all I do is I just release that tension on those knots, pull it all through. He said, as if it was easy. And then the reason why I like doing this knot is because I just loosen that up, and well, it's supposed to come out. Come on. There it goes. And you pull it out, and you're done. And then the last knot that I'm going to share with you is a Taut-Line hitch. So I'm going to go ahead and secure on this nail one more time. Come back to my quote-unquote tree right here. Now, the benefit of a Taut-Line hitch is that it's a friction hitch. So I can tie it from with using a guy line to a shelter or whatever and pull it tight to get my shelter spread out to where I need it. So anyways, this could be a tent stake, whatever. I go ahead and I'm going to wrap this through twice. Just like I did, just like I showed before with my trucker's hitch. Okay, so there's 1 and 2. Okay, so we got 2 within this loop. Now I'm going to come on the outside of the loop above it, and I'm going to do a half hitch and pull that through. This is what it should look like. So within the loop, I got 2 wraps, and then on the outside, I have 1 wrap. Okay, I go ahead and just make it nice and tight, nice and pretty. Again, nothing twists or binding or anything. Now you see how it's all loose. Now what I do with this is I just simply slide it, and it holds down on itself, making it nice and tight. Okay, so I use this primarily for my shelters. So obviously, if you want to learn more than 5 knots, I'm going to post future videos on several other knots, and especially in this series, I'm going to go over fixed loop knots. I'm going to go over midline knots, all sorts of knots, and hitches for that matter. Excuse me. So if you're not, or if you're in a hurry to learn, then there's 20 billion other videos on YouTube that you can go to. Just remember having that discipline to ensure that there's no twists or turns or bends or whatever in your knots, so then you don't lose the integrity of the knot or the functionality of that knot. Put in some safety knots so then it doesn't come undone. And then you need to challenge yourself. And again, tag me in the socials so I can see you doing it. One of the things I learned when I was a young infantryman, prior to going to Special Forces, I was up in Alaska, and we were setting up a tent because we were doing a field training exercise during the winter in the snow, stupid cold, what have you. We were setting up a tent, and I have to tie knots while I take my gloves off. Right? I don't know any better. I'm just a kid. I take my gloves off. My squad leader loses his mind. And rightfully so, because I could have gotten frostbite or whatever other cold weather injury on my hands. So being able to tie knots with gloves on is critical. Also, being overseas, when you're in Iraq, Afghanistan, or even out camping, hunting, whatever, you need to be able to tie these knots in the dark, while it's wet, while you're cold, etc. So my challenge for you is to go out and practice these knots in all weather conditions, wearing gloves in the dark with your blindfold on, whatever. Test yourself, because the time to prepare is now, and not when you need it the most. Okay, so again, go out, challenge yourself, tag me in my socials, so we can hype each other up and all that good stuff. But before we go, I'm just going to share with you one tip to help you be more successful in your fieldcraft environment. So some of you might already know this, but in a tactical environment, speed is key, right? So when I'm trying to set up my shelter, the last thing I need to do is I need to fight knots. Okay, I have my loop here, and I go around my tree here to create an anchor. The tree hit me. Okay, so I go around my tree here to create my anchor. Now, I can go ahead and pull all of this through, or I can just pull a little bit through and pull an anchor. And then from there, secure it. Okay? And then when I'm done, I grab that anchor and I pull it out, and we're done. So again, rather than creating another knot or pulling all of my material through, because speed is the key, I have my end of line bowline on my ridge line. I pull a little bit through, toggle it, pull it tight, and then push it towards my anchor point. Now I have a secure anchor point to go ahead and run my ridge line. Then when I'm ready to break down camp, I simply grab the toggle, pull to release some slack, pull it out, and I'm out and I'm done. Now I stow my paracord back in my ruck or back in my gear, and I'm ready to move out quickly, quietly, and without hassle. All right. So there you have it for this episode, the 5 knots that I recommend you start off with and put in your toolbox. You have your challenge. Now, if you found this video to be useful and some value, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button, share with your friends, and hit that bell so that you can be notified for future videos as they come out, which in this series, we're just getting started, okay? So until the next video, prepare, train, survive, and I'll catch you on the next one.